I never thought a Tinder date could go so wrong. I mean, I've had my fair share of awkward encounters. The guy who talked about his cat for 2 hours straight, the one who showed up wearing a fedora, and the one who ghosted me mid-date to go play Pokemon Go. But this was something else entirely. This wasn't just awkward. This was terrifying. It started like any other date. We matched on Tinder, exchanged a few messages, and decided to meet up for drinks. His name was Alex. He seemed normal enough. Good job, nice smile, no red flags in his profile. He suggested a cozy little bar downtown, and I agreed. I figured it would be a low-pressure way to see if we clicked. When I got there, he was already waiting at a table. He looked just like his pictures. Tall, dark hair, a confident smile. We ordered drinks, made small talk, and everything seemed fine. He was charming, funny, and easy to talk to, but about an hour into the date, something felt off. It was subtle at first. He kept glancing over my shoulder, like he was watching someone behind me. I turned around a few times, but there was no one there, just an empty corner of the bar. When I asked him about it, he laughed it off and said he was just people watching, but the way he said it made my skin crawl. Then there was the way he talked about his job. He said he worked in security, but when I pressed him for details, he got evasive. He changed the subject quickly, steering the conversation back to me. At the time, I thought maybe he was just being modest, but looking back, I realized he was hiding something. The real turning point came when I went to the bathroom. I excused myself, and as I walked away, I caught him pulling out his phone and typing something quickly. I didn't think much of it, until I came back and saw the look on his face. He was pale, his hands were shaking, and he kept glancing at the door. When I asked if everything was okay, he forced a smile and said, "Yeah, just a work thing." But it wasn't just a work thing. About 10 minutes later, a group of men walked into the bar. They were all dressed in dark clothes, and they looked out of place. They didn't order drinks or sit down. They just stood near the entrance, scanning the room. And then they locked eyes with Alex. I'll never forget the look on his face. It was pure panic. He grabbed my arm and whispered, "We need to leave, now." Before I could even process what was happening, he was pulling me toward the back of the bar. I stumbled after him, my heart racing, as he led me through a narrow hallway and out a side door. We ended up in an alley, and he didn't stop walking. He was practically dragging me, his grip tight on my wrist. I kept asking him what was going on, but he just kept saying, "I'll explain later." We turned down another alley, then another, until we were completely lost. Finally, he stopped and let go of me. "Listen," he said, his voice low and urgent. "I don't have time to explain everything, but those men back there, they're dangerous, and if they find me, they'll find you too. You need to go home, right now, and don't tell anyone about this. Don't call the police, don't talk to anyone, just act like this never happened." I was too shocked to argue. I just nodded, and he took off running down the alley, disappearing into the night. I stood there for a moment, my mind racing, before I finally started walking. I didn't know where I was, but I knew I needed to get as far away from that bar as possible. It took me over an hour to find my way back to my car. When I finally got home, I locked the door and sat on the couch, trying to process what had just happened. I thought about calling the police, but Alex's warning kept echoing in my head. Don't talk to anyone. So I didn't. The next morning, I woke up to a text from an unknown number. It was from Alex. All it said was, "I'm sorry. Stay safe." I tried to reply, but the number was disconnected. I never heard from him again. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but a few days later, I started noticing things. A car parked outside my apartment for hours at a time. A man in a hoodie who seemed to be following me at the grocery store. And then, one night, I came home to find my front door slightly ajar. Nothing was stolen, but I could tell someone had been inside. I don't know who Alex really was or what he was involved in. I don't know why those men were after him or why they might be after me. All I know is that I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched, that I'm not safe, and that somehow this isn't over. So, if you're out there, Alex, I just want to say this. I don't know what you got me into, but I want out. Whatever this is, I don't want any part of it. And to anyone listening to this story, be careful who you swipe right on, because you never know who's really behind that profile.
I met her on Tinder. Her name was Hannah. Bright smile, curly brown hair, and this down-to-earth vibe in her profile that stood out from all the other filtered selfies. Our chats flowed effortlessly. She was witty, into true crime podcasts, and worked as a graphic designer. After a week of messaging, we decided to meet up. We agreed on this cozy Italian place downtown. It had string lights draped over the patio, the kind of spot that made you forget you were in a city buzzing with car horns and chaos. I arrived 10 minutes early, nervous energy bubbling in my chest. She walked in wearing a simple black dress and a leather jacket. No Instagram filters. She was even prettier in person. I stood up, and she gave me this warm, confident smile that immediately eased the tension. The conversation was easy. We talked about everything. Her weird coworker who only ate canned soup, my failed attempts at cooking, and the bizarre people we'd matched with on dating apps. The food was incredible, but honestly, I barely noticed because I was so focused on her. After dinner, we decided to grab a drink at a bar nearby. It was a dimly lit spot with vinyl records lining the walls. The kind of place where the bartender remembers your name after 2 visits. We found a booth in the corner, and as the night wore on, our conversation got deeper. She opened up about a rough breakup and how she'd been hesitant to get back into dating. I shared some of my own baggage. By the time we were on our second drinks, the bar was getting packed and noisy. She leaned in and said, "Want to get out of here?" "Yeah, sure," I said, trying to sound casual, but my heart was racing. We walked outside, and the cool air was a relief after the stuffy bar. "Do you mind giving me a ride home?" she asked. "I took an Uber here." "Of course," I said. My car was parked a few blocks away. The streets were quieter now, and our conversation had settled into a comfortable silence. When we reached my car, I opened the door for her, and she slid in, thanking me with that same warm smile. As we drove, she gave me directions. Her place was in a part of town I wasn't super familiar with, but I didn't think much of it. We were laughing about something when she suddenly said, "Take the next right." The street was narrow and dark, lined with old warehouses. "Are you sure this is the right way?" I asked. "Yeah, it's a shortcut," she said, her tone casual. We drove a bit further, and I noticed how deserted it was. No streetlights, no houses, just these looming buildings with boarded-up windows. My stomach tightened, but I told myself not to overthink it. "Just up ahead," she said, pointing to a small alley. I slowed down, and that's when I saw it. 2 guys standing at the entrance of the alley. They were dressed in dark clothes, their faces partially hidden by hoodies. They weren't moving, just standing there watching us. I felt a sudden jolt of adrenaline. "Is this your place?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She hesitated for a split second. "Yeah," she said, but her tone had lost that confident warmth. Every instinct in me was screaming that something was off. I kept my foot on the brake, my eyes locked on the 2 guys. They started walking toward the car. I glanced at Hannah. Her expression had changed. She looked tense, almost nervous. "Actually," I said, forcing a laugh, "I think I should head back to the main road. This place looks a bit sketchy." Before she could respond, I hit the gas and made a sharp U-turn, my tires screeching on the pavement. I saw the 2 guys break into a sprint, but I was already speeding away. Hannah didn't say a word. She just stared straight ahead, her hands clenched in her lap. We drove in silence until we reached a well-lit intersection. I pulled over and took a shaky breath. "What the hell was that?" I asked. She looked at me, her face pale. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't know those guys would be there." I wanted to believe her, but my gut told me there was more to the story. "I think you should get out," I said, my voice firm. She hesitated, then nodded. "You're right. I'm sorry." She opened the door and stepped out. I watched her walk toward a nearby bus stop, my heart still racing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the scene in my head, the dark alley, the guys waiting, her sudden shift in demeanor. The next day, I deleted Tinder. Some dates just aren't worth the risk. I matched with her on a Tuesday night. Her name was Erica. Pretty, blonde, and her profile had this mix of charm and sarcasm that made me want to know her. We started chatting, and she was quick with her replies, witty in a way that kept me hooked. By Thursday, we'd made plans to meet for dinner at this trendy Italian place downtown. When I got to the restaurant, Erica was already there, seated at a cozy corner table. She looked even better in person, confident, with an easy smile. We exchanged a quick hug and sat down. The conversation flowed effortlessly. She told me she was a graphic designer, loved hiking, and had a thing for 90s rock music. I told her about my work in marketing, my love for cooking, and my recent failed attempt at a half marathon. Dinner went by in a blur of laughter and shared stories. When the check came, I offered to pay, but she insisted on splitting. I liked that about her, independent, no nonsense. As we left the restaurant, she suggested we grab a drink at a nearby bar. I was all in. The bar was dimly lit and buzzing with people. We found a spot near the back, and she ordered us a couple of old fashions. We clinked glasses, and I remember thinking this was turning out to be one of the best dates I'd had in years. About halfway through our second round, she got a call. She glanced at her phone, frowned, and said, "Sorry, I have to take this. Be right back." She grabbed her drink and headed toward the back exit. I waited and waited. 5 minutes turned into 10, then 15. I texted her, "Everything okay?" No response. I started to get this sinking feeling. Maybe she bailed? But that didn't make sense. We were having a great time. I decided to check outside. The back alley was quiet, lit only by a flickering streetlight. No sign of Erica. I walked a little further down, past a row of dumpsters, and that's when I saw her. She was standing near a car, talking to a guy. He was tall, wearing a hoodie pulled low over his face. Something about the way he was standing, leaning in, almost cornering her, put me on edge. I hesitated for a second, then called out, "Erica? Everything okay?" She looked over, and I swear there was a flicker of relief in her eyes. "Yeah, just a friend. Be right there." The guy didn't move. He just stood there, staring at me. My gut was screaming that something was off. I walked closer, my heart racing. "Hey, man," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Everything cool here?" He didn't respond. Instead, he took a step toward me, his hands clenched into fists. My fight-or-flight instincts kicked in. I wasn't looking for a fight, but I wasn't going to back down either. "Erica, let's go," I said firmly. She moved quickly toward me, and the guy muttered something under his breath before turning and walking away. I watched him until he disappeared around the corner. "Who the hell was that?" I asked. She looked shaken. "Just someone I used to know." "I'm sorry, I didn't mean for the night to get weird." We walked back to the bar in silence. She was visibly upset, and I didn't want to press her. We finished our drinks, but the vibe had shifted. I offered to walk her to her car, and she nodded. As we reached her car, she turned to me. "Thank you for stepping in back there. I didn't realize he'd show up. Do you need to report it or something?" She shook her head. It's complicated." I didn't push. "Well, if you ever need to talk or anything, let me know." She smiled faintly. "You're a good guy. I'm really sorry the night ended like this." We said our goodbyes, and I watched her drive off, still feeling uneasy. The next morning, I texted her to check in. No response. By evening, I was starting to get worried. I called, but it went straight to voicemail. Something didn't sit right. Out of curiosity, I did a quick search online. What I found made my blood run cold. There was a news article from a few months ago. A man had been arrested for stalking and assaulting a woman. Erica. The mugshot was the guy from the alley. I sat there, staring at the screen, my mind racing. Had he been following her? Did he know about our date? And why hadn't she told me? Later that night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the image of that guy standing in the alley, his hood low, fists clenched. Every shadow outside my window seemed to shift and move, making me wonder if he'd somehow tracked me down too. I never heard from Erica again. Her profile disappeared from Tinder, and her number was disconnected. I even drove by the bar once, half hoping I'd bump into her, just to make sure she was okay. Weeks turned into months, but I couldn't shake the unease. One afternoon, I got a random friend request on social media from someone named Erica. The profile picture was a stock image, definitely not her, but the name was too close to ignore. I hesitated before declining the request. I didn't want to open a door to something that should have stayed closed. One night, while scrolling through the news, I came across an article about rising incidents of targeted harassment linked to dating apps. It included tips for staying safe, meeting in public places, not sharing too much personal information, and trusting your instincts. Reading it only cemented my resolve to be more cautious. What happened with Erica was a lesson, one I wouldn't forget.